I'm going to talk about my mom's life. What she did was she endured trials. She didn't endure them well, but she had lots and lots of trials. So I guess she was mortal, and for some reason she didn't overcome any of her trials. She didn't ever accept any of them, and so she carried them her whole life, and her trials worsened. So her first pain that she had was when she's 3 years old, and she was in a bed of ants, and all these ants were biting her. And I guess she didn't know what to do with all the ants biting her, and so that was the pain that she had. And then when she went to school, she went to school in kindergarten, but for some reason she and her sister started kindergarten at the same time, and they didn't want her in the same class, so they put her in the first grade. So she had to read and do arithmetic without even know the ABCs or the 1, 2, 3s. So that was a trouble. And then her next pain that she had was when her mom passed away when she was 9. And her mom passed away, and being the oldest, she took care of her father, who had lockjaw and the mumps during that time. And then her father remarried, and his second wife took away her relationship. She had developed a good relationship with her father during the time that she was taking care of him, and her mother-in-law took away that relationship, so there was tension between her and her mother-in-law, and that lasted even for a long time. Like when she came off her mission, she was on a high. She did lots of things on her mission that was great, and then she came home. She didn't even remember her homecoming, because she I don't know, it's just tension between her and her stepmom. And but she also did lots of great things, like when she was 15, she worked at the telephone office, and she was able to do all that stuff in the telephone. Back then, the telephone office was on the across the street from the Tabernacle, the St. George Tabernacle, and she worked in that. And then sometime after that, she worked in the restaurant called the Sugarloaf Cafe. So where we have the Dixie Rock that has the Dixie on it, that's called the Sugarloaf. That's another name for it, is the Sugarloaf. And they had the Sugarloaf Cafe that she worked at. And then sometime after that, after she graduated from high school, graduated from Dixie High School, she went to Salt Lake, and she studied cosmetology. So she studied all that stuff, and then sometime after that, she went on a mission to Mexico. So she went on a mission to Mexico, and she did really great things there. And she came back, and she came back from Mexico, and she couldn't keep up with all of the hairstyles, and so she went and studied nursing, and she started at BYU. That's where she met my dad, Victor Decker, and they got married while they were up there, and they had their first son there. And then sometime she went between that baby and the next baby. They went to the Hole in the Rock. It was he taught there the hole in the rock, and then I think he worked at the trading post by there too for one summer, and then they ended up settling in St. George, and I think they lived a few places, but they had 3 children before they had, or when they had the house that they settled in 1971. That's the same year my brother Steve was born. I don't know why there isn't any baby pictures of Steve, but he was, I think he was born at that location, and that's where we lived for quite a while. At that house, that's 4062 South, 100 West. They lived there as long as at least my dad was around, and yeah, and she had lots of trials. I told in the story of Victor Decker that he abused her quite a bit. He abused her physically, sexually, emotionally, lots of different types of abuse. And when I was around, I didn't really see much respect for her. There's sometimes that he'd massage his feet, but he was always yelling at her and putting her down and not really helping her. And he also had a hard time keeping a job, so she was being the breadwinner for quite a while, and so that made things hard. So that was another trial that she had, was her relationship with my dad, being abused by him. And then I think that out of all the pain that he's caused her, I think that what hurt the worst is when he testified in court that she was an unfit mom. I think that's what hurt her the most, because she really cared about her children, and she loved everybody. You know, I already said that she had a big heart, except for, I guess, she didn't like my dad because of the pain that he caused her. So because of the pain that he caused her, she hated him and ended up divorcing him. But before they were divorced, there was an accident that one of my brothers was killed, another one was put in a coma for 3 months, and so ever since after that brother was killed, she always had a homesickness for him that never quit. So ever since he passed away, she had a homesickness for him, because she knew him for the 17 years that he lived, and she loved him and missed him when he was gone. And then my brother Mike was in a coma, and she went up there to Salt Lake many times while he was in the coma, and they didn't really do anything for him. So she helped do the range of motion and stuff, because she knew that he had lots of chariots horses and lots of pain in his body. And finally they decided in March of that year, the accident happened in December, March, or maybe February of that year, they allowed her to take him home, because she was a licensed practical nurse. So she took care of him, and then she was able to help him get out of the coma. So he got out of the coma, and then he lived his life. And I already talked about Michael, but so the next thing so my mom helped him, and he actually ended up graduating from high school, and she placed him in lots of homes. There's lots of homes that she went to. One was in Provo, and another one was in California. There's a couple places in California. There's a family in California, and then he went to a place where they took care of people that had bad injuries, and but he was there for a while, and then he got called on a mission he was called to serve in the Spanish Fork in the Bishop's Storehouse. He was there for a year. Then his mission call got extended, and when he moved down to St. George, and then after that he did that for a while, and he also worked at other places. But most of the time when mom was taking care of Mike, she let him just roam around the neighborhood, and he did lots of things for himself. And I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but he was able to do all that work that he did. He like rake leaves and all these things that actually helped preserve his life, even though he had bad balance. And so that was a trial for her to try to help take care of him, and because he was disabled the rest of his life. And if I go back to my dad, she did end up divorcing my dad, and that was, she divorced my dad. And even after she divorced my dad, she still had lots of troubles she was always in lots of pain and always telling how bad things was when she was married to him, and that's all she could ever think about. So she never did overcome that in this life, but she was a really great woman, and she took care of my brother, and she did it the way she did it. She just allowed him to do his will, to go around the neighborhood and clean things up, and she had that trial, and the trial of my still having lots of anger towards my dad for what he caused to him. Even after he passed away, my dad passed away in 1995. Even after that, she's always saying how bad things was, and she was married to him. And but she was always helping lots of people. She was always sending packages to the missionaries, and she'd go and give gifts to people, just drop them at their doorstep and give them to them. And she's always trying to help people. And I think her hardest trial was the last one. The last trial she had was when her son was taken away from her. And it's really hard, because she wanted to take care of him, but it was taken away from her. And she is also declared incompetent by the court, and so she ended up not even being able to drive. And my younger brother had to take care of her because he was still living there in the house. So he took care of her for the rest of her life, and she ended up dying. And it was all of a sudden death. None of us knew that she's gonna die. But she did live a good life, and it was very difficult. But I know she's overcome it now, because she doesn't have this mortal body to restrain her from. I guess the body is supposed to help things, but I think in her case, I don't think she didn't overcome in this life, so she would have overcome in the next, right? Or overcome in the spirit, I guess. But and that was my mom, and hope you like this. And I know that she was a great, powerful woman, and she had a great, powerful spirit. And now, over and out.